United States Air Force just shot down 4 objects in the sky. In all 4 engagements, fighters used short-range infrared AIM-9X missiles. The first object was a sizable high-altitude balloon, while the other 3 were smaller and remained unidentified. Pentagon officials have stated that the increased sensitivity of the radars used by Northern Command was the cause of the 3 additional detections. Chris Lado, welcome to Lado Files. Welcome to the channel. I'm Chris Lado, retired F-16 pilot turned UAP investigator. Have an exciting show today. Here's the timeline of the engagements. On February 4th, an F-22 shot down a high-altitude Chinese balloon off the coast of South Carolina. The FBI has so far only recovered an extremely limited amount of evidence from the ocean. Maybe they should have shot it down over the land. On February 10th, 2 F-35s encountered a cylindrical and silver-ish gray object near Dead Horse, Alaska. One pilot supposedly reported that it interfered with their aircraft sensors, while the other said there were no issues. F-22s later on in the day shot the thing down. U.S. personnel are currently searching the sea ice for the wreckage. On February 11th, F-22s launched from Elmendorf Base in Anchorage, Alaska. They tracked an unidentified unmanned object into Canada and shot it down in the Yukon, again with an AIM-9X missile. Canadian Special Forces are reportedly investigating or trying to find the crash site. Then, on February 12th, on Sunday, a U.S. F-16 shot down a 4th object over Lake Huron. There's limited details about this, but it's great to see an F-16 getting in on the action. Again, with the same missile, that advanced AIM-9X infrared. It's basically not your grandpa's heat-seeking missile. This is a infrared imager. This object was octagonal in structure, unmanned, and traveling at about 20,000 feet. A Pentagon official stated that there was no indication of surveillance capabilities and that the object was likely just a meteorological balloon. The first balloon was a large 60-meter tall surveillance balloon. The other 3 objects are reportedly much smaller, but supposedly of the same ilk, if you will. My own curious question is, how can they not identify these things? How can you shoot something down but not identify it? I mean, is it a balloon or is it not a balloon? So, quite interesting. Both sides of the communication was recorded of the first shootdown. I made a video where I show the pilot, the actual fighter pilot's recording that's transmitted from the air. But now they've actually added, or someone has on open source, added the actual huntress. So they have the whole communication of the shootdown. Check out that video after this one if you haven't seen it yet. It's worth noting that at least one U.S. fighter pilot has lost his life and died in previous incidents involving UFO shootdowns. In 1948, Captain Thomas F. Mantell, a Kentucky Air National Guard pilot, died pursuing an unidentified flying object. The United States Air Force's Project Blue Book investigation revealed that Mantell may have been chasing a skyhook balloon and died from a hypoxia at a high altitude. Skyhook balloons were high-altitude balloons, the first high-altitude balloons developed by the U.S. Initially, they were used just for meteorological data, but then, of course, as militaries always do, they had to add on new sensors, military intelligence sensors. Thankfully, there have been no physical injuries so far in the 4 shootdowns, and they've all been successful as far as we know. There is a long history of spy balloons. Why balloons? We launched the UAP Society last year in June by actually launching 2 weather balloons, meteorological science balloons. They went up to over 37,000 meters, so 110,000 feet. Quite high, higher than at least most of these balloons. But there is a long history of actually spy balloons. There's likely some surveillance equipment on this first down spy balloon. High-altitude spy balloons have a long history dating back to the late 1800s. Project Skyhook was a government program in the late 40s, and the named culprit of Mantell's death. Balloons, long used for collecting meteorological data, now offer the opportunity of collecting highly technical information and photographs, of course. In 1955, President Dwight D. Eisenhower authorized Project Genetrix, a U.S. Air Force program to launch surveillance balloons over China, Eastern Europe, and the Soviet Union to gather intelligence and take aerial photos. The Genetrix balloons reach altitudes of 50,000 to 100,000 feet, which was beyond the reach of contemporary fighter planes. It's still high for today. Okay, it's difficult to shoot something down up at 64,000 feet. In January 1956, the U.S. launched 516 high-altitude balloons from 5 launch sites. The U.S. recovered less than 10% of these payloads, and only 31 provided usable photographs. The Soviets shot down numerous balloons, which led to diplomatic protests from the target countries. Does this sound familiar? The Soviets recovered many of the balloons and used their temperature-resistant and radiation-hardened film that they found for the Luna 3 probe to capture the first images of the moon's far side. Another similar project, Project Moby Dick, involved balloons photographing sensitive Soviet sites and landing in the Sea of Japan until a crew flying the C-19 flying boxcar or a Navy vessel retrieved it. The project caused tensions between the U.S. and Soviet forces when the Soviets discovered the remnants of a U.S. spy camera in February 1956. Does that sound familiar? After the U-2 spy plane replaced the spy balloons, the U.S. seems to have lost tactical knowledge of its high-altitude balloon domain. I mean, they only got back 10% of these balloons, and effectively you're just giving your equipment to the enemy, right? You saw the Soviets actually used our technology. So the U-2 spy plane was much more useful. It could fly and actually come back. You would get most of the photos back. The recent shootdowns of these balloons likely indicates a new awareness by the U.S. of China's parallel technological development and exploration. So the U.S. made their radars more sensitive to pick up this kind of old school threat. Would the U.S. government tell us if they actually shot down a real alien craft? The Roswell incident, where a high-altitude balloon object crashed in New Mexico, remains one of the most intriguing events in modern history. Major Marcel, the first person on the scene, at least military person on the scene, reported that the material he found was unlike anything he had ever seen. He described it as light and unbreakable despite efforts to destroy it with a sledgehammer. It was like the foil on a pack of cigarettes, he said. Felt like you had nothing in your hands. Major Marcel's testimony sparked widespread speculation about the existence of extraterrestrial life and advanced technology. However, General Ramey changed the story once the material actually got up to command. And he ordered Major Marcel to keep quiet. Major Marcel never changed his story, but he gained no benefits from his statements. Why would Major Marcel lie? And why would General Ramey cover up the truth? I believe the answer lies in national security. During our current age, the age of total war, mutually assured destruction, mass nuclear war, the military's only priority is to keep the nation safe. They don't really care what we think or how we feel, just that we're safe. Governments have lied and manipulated information in the name of national security. They've been caught red-handed. The U.S. military would have 100% confirmed knowledge of an extraterrestrial reality. And so far, they would not have shared this information with the public. Moreover, that means if one of the reported UFO sightings was a genuine alien craft, studying its technology could lead to unprecedented advancements in various fields, such as material science, electronics, propulsion systems, and wireless technology. Keeping the information secret will give the military an advantage in searching for strange archaeological findings worldwide. A well-equipped team could quickly investigate any potential UFO event, and Men in Black could confiscate critical technologies and silence witnesses if necessary. So, in conclusion, in my personal opinion, nations care more about their own survival than the knowledge or well-being of humanity. Credible proof of alien technology is way too valuable and too explosive to share. No military or government would risk revealing it to the public. Smash that like button if you do like this content so far. Subscribe to get future notifications, and then you can support the channel. Get behind the scenes access at patreon.com/Chris Lado. Let's take a closer look into those most recent shootdowns. The first balloon, much higher, right? Up to probably over 100,000 feet as it's flying across the US. Now they're able to shoot it down over here, somewhere in Whiskey 122. So you'll mention if you read the actual shootdown comm that they talk about whiskey areas. Whiskey areas are warning areas. They basically go out to 12 nautical miles from the coast. And they mention area 122, whiskey 122 is this area right in here. That's where the F-22 is actually flying through. This is whiskey area 122. Appears Northern Command turned up their radars, right? So you can actually change the clutter detection because there's many things flying in the air. There's birds, there's flocks of birds, there are clouds, there's weather, there's hail. So you want to pick up a certain amount of clutter, things in the area, but you only want to worry about things you care about. So that's why they weren't detecting these, I guess, smaller objects, smaller balloons, if you will. Until now on the West Coast in Alaska, they start picking up these detects in Alaska. So I actually flew in Alaska for 4 years down here at Eielson Air Force Base. This is where the F-35s must have launched from. Okay, this is a 12-hour drive. If you can think about that, look at the scale. This is 100 kilometers. Okay, so this is very far. This is up Prudhoe Bay. There's nothing up here. You'll see this is the North Sea right now. The North Pole is right here. I have been up here on a hiking trip. I almost actually died right over here hiking in the cold, probably the closest time I've been to death. But here they shot down, actually the F-35s engaged. Quite interesting is one of the pilots said his aircraft sensors were being interfered with. This is probably the most interesting part of this engagement for me. They also said it's a cylindrical object and silverish gray. That's also quite interesting. I mean, what is a cylindrical object? Is this a cylindrical balloon? So are there different types of balloons? That's a good question. They shot this thing down. Again, how do you shoot something down without identifying it? And if you know it's not manned, how do you not identify it? Again. So F-22s, they were with an AWACS. They came from Elmendorf as well, with a full AWACS, okay, large aircraft, as well as all their tanker support. So this is a full-up operation. I think they were ready. The base is fully engaged in this, and you had a lot of assets involved. You have live weapons, F-22s, F-35s, AWACS, and tankers all supporting it. Okay, so yeah, again, full operations up there. So then basically that's the next day, next morning, they tracked, again out of Elmendorf Air Force Base, another object. They tracked another object into Canada. So that was here in Canada into the Yukon. If you go here, this is the Yukon, again, a large area. And this they shut down over land. There's limited details, almost no details on this. But working with Canada, Canada sent out their special forces to capture. We should get the equipment back on this, okay? Because unfortunately what happened is up here they shot it down apparently over the water. So shot it down over the water, but this is all ice now. This is all sea ice. So they're probably out there on snow machines riding around trying to get to this crash site. I've actually done crash site investigations, and I would love to be on these crash site investigations. I don't think they're going to let me. So basically the same day almost, kind of same operational day. It could have even been the same fighters. Who knows? Goes back out, refueling, talks to F-18s. Apparently Canadian F-18s joined up, but F-22s actually shot it down. Interesting, over Canada. So Trudeau had to talk with Biden, I guess, and they said, yeah, let's shoot it down. You know, now they're just like machine guns out there shooting all these objects down. It's kind of strange to me as well. And then the next day, on Sunday, you had over Lake Huron is F-16 now. So F-16s, baby, coming out of these Air National Guard bases. I do know in Duluth there's Air National Guard, as well as you do have other in Vermont. So, and they said, let's see, this was at 20,000 feet. This was a octagonal in structure, unmanned, and traveling at about 20,000 feet, so quite a bit lower. And this is going into populated areas. I mean, I guess, I don't know. They say safety of fight, and shooting down all these things was an abundance of caution, right? They said it's an abundance of caution. We started shooting everything down. So quite interesting. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. What's your take on this? Please share this and subscribe to get future notifications. You can join the UAP Society. You can buy our merch. We are building camera systems, Sky 360 camera systems. Why? Because, again, I don't think the government is going to tell us. They're not going to give us the information. So we're going to get it on our own. Imagine if we had Sky 360 systems set up, probably not out on Dead Horse, but we could have had it, you know, around Michigan. We could have areas on this in South Carolina. What if we were tracking these balloons? So it'll be quite interesting, quite fun. Hope you guys get involved. Thanks for being here. Thanks to all these amazing Patreons. You can go to patreon.com/Chris Lato and join the team as well. Until then, have a great day. Peace.